Sometimes life pushes you to the edge where silence feels louder than prayer. You've cried, you've begged, you've repeated the same plea night after night, yet the world remains still. In those quiet moments of exhaustion, you begin to wonder if your words are even reaching anywhere at all. And then, just when your hope feels like it's fading, a realization comes. Maybe the answer isn't delayed, maybe you are being prepared for it. There is something profoundly powerful about words. They may seem small, just vibrations in the air, yet they carry the potential to transform destinies. When we speak with the heart aligned to faith, our words rise beyond the limits of sound. They become prayers, they become light. The first thing to understand is that not every word you utter has the same effect. Some are ordinary, they pass by unnoticed. But some are born from a place so deep within you that they tremble with sincerity. Those are the words that move mountains in the unseen world. The hidden power behind words lies not in their length, not in their eloquence, but in the energy that fuels them, the belief that comes from knowing that every letter you whisper is heard. Think about it. Every moment of your life, your heart speaks. Even when your tongue is silent, your soul sends signals, cries and whispers that only the divine can hear. But when you align both your voice and your heart, the impact becomes unstoppable. That is why certain phrases hold unimaginable strength. When spoken with genuine belief, they penetrate beyond this world. They reach the one who created language itself, the one who taught the soul how to express pain, hope, and surrender. The power behind these words is not magic, it is connection. It is the moment your will merges with the will of the one who controls everything. These words are like keys. They unlock the doors that your efforts alone could never open. And here lies the mystery. It's not just about what you say, but how you say it. A word uttered with arrogance can close every door of mercy, but the same word spoken with humility can open 1,000 gates of blessing. When your words carry truth, they vibrate differently. They echo in the heavens. They tell a story of your faith. Many people pray, but only a few connect. The difference lies in those 3 words that carry complete submission, that reveal the depth of your reliance, that show you've placed your heart in the safest hands. You might not see results immediately, but the moment those words leave your lips with conviction, the process begins. A divine response is set in motion. Words are more than communication, they are creation. With a word, you can destroy hope, and with a word, you can revive a dying soul. That's why the purest form of dua doesn't depend on how beautifully you phrase your request, but on the purity of your intention. Even the simplest plea, when soaked in sincerity, carries more weight than 1,000 polished speeches. These 3 words hold that very essence. They are not a request, they are a surrender. They tell the unseen world that you've stopped fighting against fate and started trusting its author. And when you do, something remarkable happens. The words no longer just come from your mouth, they come from your core. They carry tears, patience, gratitude, and love all at once. They reflect your journey, your struggle, your hope. They remind you that the one who listens doesn't need perfection in your language. He needs honesty in your tone. When those 3 words are spoken from a place of absolute truth, they pierce the veil between despair and peace. You see, the hidden power behind words isn't about sound, it's about surrender. Every miracle begins with a whisper of belief. When the heart finally learns to speak the language of trust, every hardship begins to soften. You begin to notice that the storms that once scared you now bring lessons, that the delays that once frustrated you now build patience, and that the pain that once broke you now shapes you. All of that starts with a few words, the right ones, the ones that mean more than explanation ever could. So never underestimate the power of the words you speak in your quietest moments. Every syllable uttered in faith has a destination. Every heartfelt whisper has an echo in the heavens. And when you speak those 3 sacred words with unwavering belief, the universe listens, the angels carry it upward, the unseen responds. Because those words, born from trust and humility, are not just speech, they are your soul's most powerful offering. They hold the power to open paths, soften hearts, and bring the impossible within reach. All you need to do is mean them, truly mean them, and watch how the unseen world moves for you. It is easy to think that the power of prayer lies in how long we spend whispering it or how beautifully we arrange our words. But in truth, None of that defines its worth. What gives your prayer power is not the quantity of your words, but the quality of your faith. Faith is not a formula, it is a feeling. It is not something you memorize, it is something you live. Many people approach prayer like a transaction, as if saying the right phrases guarantees an instant result. But the truth runs much deeper. The real essence of asking lies in the state of the heart when you ask. When your heart trembles with sincerity, even a few words can reach the heavens faster than 1,000 empty repetitions. Faith is what bridges the gap between your request and its answer. It is that quiet certainty that even if everything around you seems unchanged, something in the unseen world has already shifted in your favor. Sometimes the way you pray matters less than the trust you carry while praying. You can raise your hands for hours, or you can whisper a single heartfelt plea. What decides the outcome is how strongly your heart believes that it has been heard. When faith speaks, distance disappears. You are no longer just talking into the air. You are connecting with the source of mercy itself. There is a kind of purity in faith that cannot be taught, only felt. It shows itself in your silence, in your patience, in the way you hold on even when you feel like letting go. Faith is when you ask, not because you think you deserve an answer, but because you know that mercy doesn't depend on what you deserve. It depends on love. The secret is not in finding perfect words. It is in finding a heart that refuses to stop believing. Some people think that if their prayers aren't answered quickly, it must mean something is wrong with the way they asked. But perhaps what is being tested is not your wording, it's your waiting. True faith is revealed not in how loudly you ask, but in how calmly you wait. Because the one who truly trusts doesn't panic in silence. They understand that silence is not rejection. Silence is sometimes the most loving form of preparation. It is where your character grows, where your patience deepens, and where your heart learns the rhythm of divine timing. Faith has no shortcuts. It doesn't need decoration, and it doesn't need to be shown. It is quiet but unbreakable. You might be praying in a dark room with tears running down your face, and no one may ever see you. But the unseen realm listens. Every heartbeat becomes a word, every tear becomes a sentence, and every sigh becomes a declaration of trust. That is faith over formula. The realization that it is not the mechanics of prayer that move the world, it is the belief behind it. And that belief can change everything. You could be a person who barely finds the strength to speak, but if your heart still says, I know I'm heard, you have already succeeded. Faith doesn't guarantee that you will get exactly what you want. It guarantees that you will receive what is right for you. Sometimes what you want would harm you in ways you cannot see. And faith is the shield that protects you from your own impatience. When you begin to live with that trust, your entire perspective changes. You stop measuring the power of prayer by the speed of its result. You begin to see the beauty in delay, the wisdom in waiting, and the mercy hidden in every unanswered plea. Faith teaches you that every not yet is still an answer. Every wait is still a form of care. And every closed door hides a better path that you will only recognize once the time is right. You learn to smile even when things don't go your way, because faith whispers, there's a reason. You learn to breathe through the pain, because faith reminds you, this too will pass. You learn to keep asking, not because you are desperate, but because you are devoted. So when you raise your hands and speak, remember this. The real power lies not in how perfectly you phrase your prayer, but in how deeply you believe in the one you're speaking to. Let your words be few, but your faith be vast. Let your lips whisper softly, but your heart shout with certainty. Because when you pray with true faith, you are not following a formula. You are holding a conversation with the one who already knows your need before you even speak it. That kind of prayer never goes unanswered. It may not come in the way you expect, but it will always come in the way you need. There comes a point in every soul's journey where the struggle becomes too heavy to carry alone. You plan, you push, you fight, and yet everything seems to slip out of your control. That is the moment when you begin to realize a truth that changes everything sometimes. The most powerful thing you can do is stop fighting. The greatest act of faith is not found in resistance, but in surrender. The secret of true peace lies not in mastering control, but in learning how to release it. These three words are the essence of that surrender. a quiet acceptance that says, I trust what is written for me, even when I cannot see it. We live in a world that glorifies effort, where we are told that if we try hard enough, we can make anything happen. But life keeps proving that it doesn't always work that way. You can do everything right and still face delays, heartbreaks, and disappointments. And in those moments, when your strength fails and your plans crumble, surrender becomes your greatest weapon. It is the bridge between human limitation and divine wisdom. To surrender is not to give up. It is to recognize that there is a higher plan unfolding, one greater than your understanding. When you truly surrender, something within you shifts. The heart that once trembled with anxiety begins to find calmness. The thoughts that once questioned every delay begin to rest in patience. You start to see that what you called setbacks were actually redirections, that every detour was guiding you to a destination you couldn't have reached on your own. The secret of true surrender is realizing that you don't need to know the how when you already trust the who. Those 3 words, spoken with a heart full of faith, declare that your job is not to control the outcome, but to keep walking with trust no matter what happens. When a person learns to surrender, their doer changes. It becomes softer, yet more powerful. Instead of demanding, it begins to flow with gratitude. Instead of asking, why me? It whispers, I trust that this is for me. That is the moment when prayer turns from a request into a relationship. You begin to understand that even unanswered prayers are a form of love, that sometimes being withheld from something is a greater blessing than receiving it. Surrender is not weakness. It is strength in its purest form. It takes courage to let go of what you thought your life should be and trust the unseen process. It takes faith to accept that the timing you imagined is not the timing that was meant for you. But when you finally reach that point, when you stop resisting and start trusting, you taste a peace that no success in the world could ever give you. The chaos around you may continue, but inside you become still. You are no longer shaken by delay, no longer crushed by rejection, because you know that everything has already been written with wisdom. True surrender doesn't happen overnight. It often begins after countless nights of frustration and tears. It happens when you finally realize that your plans, your logic, and your efforts cannot open the door that only faith can. It happens when you've been broken enough times to understand that every fall was a lesson, every pain was a message, and every pause was protection. That's when you begin to whisper those 3 words, not out of fear, but out of love. Because you finally see that the one who controls your story writes it perfectly, even the parts that hurt. When you say those words from your heart, your burden starts to fade. You no longer feel the need to question every turn in your path. You begin to wake up each day with quiet confidence, knowing that what's meant for you will find you and what's not meant for you will pass you by. And that both are blessings. You start to notice beauty in places you once overlooked. You find comfort in the waiting, purpose in the pain, and joy in the simple act of trusting. Surrender is the moment when your heart bows, not in defeat, but in peace. It is when you finally stop saying, why is this happening to me? And begin to whisper, I know there's a reason. It is the transformation of your soul from fear to faith. When those 3 words leave your lips with conviction, you are no longer a prisoner of uncertainty. You walk lighter, speak softer, and smile more because you know you are guided. And that is the secret most people miss. That true strength isn't in holding on, but in letting go with grace. It isn't in demanding answers, but in trusting that the answers will come when they're meant to. Once you surrender, you stop fighting the waves and start flowing with them. You stop asking for control and start asking for peace. You start to live with the calm assurance that whatever happens, happens for you, not against you. Those 3 words, when spoken sincerely, carry more power than 1,000 cries for help. They are not a sign of weakness. They are the ultimate expression of faith. The moment your heart finally says, I trust you completely. And from that moment on, everything begins to change. There comes a time in every believer's life when the silence after a prayer feels heavier than the pain that led to it. You've been asking, waiting, hoping, yet it seems as though nothing is moving. You watch others receive what you've been praying for, and your heart begins to whisper, why not me? It's in those moments that faith is tested most deeply. It's when the waiting stretches longer than you imagined, when the tears become your nightly companions, that you must remember, delay does not mean denial. The one who wrote your destiny has not forgotten you. Sometimes the answer comes not when you shout the loudest, but when your heart whispers the words of complete surrender. Those 3 words, simple but sacred, carry the strength to turn waiting into peace. When you're tired of waiting, when your heart feels like it can't take another day of uncertainty, that is when your sincerity is at its peak. It's in that exhaustion that your soul becomes raw, honest, and vulnerable. And that is exactly where transformation begins. The beauty of faith is that it doesn't require perfection, it requires persistence. Even when you are tired, even when your voice trembles, your faith continues to speak. Those 3 words, uttered from the depths of weariness, tell the heavens that you have chosen trust over frustration, patience over despair. People often mistake waiting as wasted time, but waiting is one of the most sacred forms of worship. It is where your heart learns to detach from results and hold on to hope. It's where you discover that strength isn't found in having everything figured out. It's found in believing even when nothing makes sense. Every moment you spend waiting with faith is not empty. It's planting seeds in the unseen world. And while you can't see it, something is growing quietly, beautifully, perfectly. There are times when you'll feel like you've done everything you can, yet the outcome remains unchanged. You've prayed in the night, cried in silence, and still no answer. But perhaps the delay is not a sign of rejection, perhaps it is protection. What you're asking for might not be ready for you, or you might not be ready for it. Sometimes the delay is a form of mercy, a way to shape you, strengthen you, and prepare you for something far greater than what you're asking for. The heart that learns to wait with grace becomes capable of receiving blessings without arrogance and enduring trials without breaking. Those who have mastered the art of waiting understand something profound. The most beautiful moments of life often come after the deepest silence. The calm before the dawn feels endless, but when the light finally appears, every second of darkness makes sense. In the same way, your unanswered prayers will one day make you grateful for the wait. You'll look back and realize that had things happened sooner, you wouldn't have been ready. You'll thank the delay because it led you to maturity, resilience, and understanding. When your heart grows restless, whisper those 3 words again. Remind yourself that your story is still unfolding and the author hasn't finished writing your chapter. There is meaning in your waiting, even when you can't see it. Every sleepless night, every unanswered question, every tear, all of it is shaping you into someone who can handle the blessings you're destined for. Your waiting is not a pause, it's preparation. There is something sacred about the patience of a believer who continues to hope when all logic says to give up. That kind of patience shakes the unseen world. It shows that your faith is not dependent on visible outcomes, but on unseen promises. When you reach that level of trust, your heart begins to experience a serenity that cannot be disturbed by delay. You stop questioning when and start focusing on why. You realize that what matters is not how quickly your prayer is answered, but how beautifully you grow through the process of waiting. Sometimes the biggest breakthroughs happen right after the moment you almost gave up. That's why you must keep holding on. Keep speaking those 3 words when your hope begins to fade. Keep trusting, even when your mind says it's over. Because in the unseen, the answer is already being prepared. The moment your heart truly submits, the path starts to clear. You may not see it, but the universe is aligning, hearts are being softened, opportunities are being created, and time is being adjusted just for you. And when the answer finally comes, and it will come, you'll realize that every moment of waiting was worth it. You'll see that the delay didn't take away from your blessing, it added to it. It refined you. It made you appreciate what was coming. It taught you how to value divine timing more than your own. So when you are tired of waiting, don't let your exhaustion silence your faith. Whisper those words again and again, softly, sincerely, until your heart believes them. The moment you do, you'll find peace even before the answer arrives. Because true faith is not proven by getting what you ask for. It's proven by trusting even when you don't. And when you trust completely, the delay no longer feels like a burden. It feels like love. There are moments in life when it feels like your prayers bounce off the walls and fall back into silence. You ask, you cry, you plead, and yet there's no visible sign of a response. You begin to question if your voice is reaching the one who listens. You start to wonder if you've been forgotten. But the truth is, the response is often closer than you think. The reason you haven't seen your prayer answered might not be because it's been ignored, but because your heart hasn't yet reached the place it needs to be for the answer to unfold. The distance between you and your answered prayer is not measured in time. It's measured in faith, in surrender, and in understanding. Sometimes what delays the response is not the unwillingness of the giver, but the unreadiness of the receiver. Imagine if every request were granted instantly. What would we learn? Patience would lose its value, gratitude would lose its depth, and faith would lose its meaning. The waiting, the silence, the pauses between the asking and the receiving, that's where your heart grows. That's where your soul matures. The response you're waiting for is not just being prepared for you, you are also being prepared for it. Every trial, every delay, every unanswered plea is polishing you, shaping you into the person who will not just receive the blessing, but will know how to honor it. The closeness of the divine response is something we often fail to sense because we measure it by emotion, not realization. Just because you can't feel it doesn't mean it isn't happening. You don't see the seed growing underground, yet one day it breaks through the soil and reaches toward the sun. The same way your prayer is working quietly, deeply, beneath the surface of your life. You can't see the movement, but it's there, rearranging events, aligning hearts, guiding you toward moments that will make sense only when the time is right. It's important to understand that sometimes the response is not about giving you what you want, but guiding you toward what you need. You may pray for success, but the true answer might come as failure that teaches you resilience. You may pray for love, but the answer might arrive as solitude that teaches you self-worth. You may pray for healing and instead receive patience, which turns out to be the deeper cure. The divine response isn't always visible in the form you expect, but it's always present, always working in your favor. When you reach a point where your heart trusts that every unanswered prayer still has meaning, that's when you begin to feel the closeness of the response. It's like a whisper that tells you, be still, everything is being arranged. The response is not far away, it's unfolding in its perfect time. Your task is not to chase the answer, but to build the faith that allows you to recognize it when it arrives. Many people receive blessings they once begged for, but because they lost patience or faith, they no longer recognize them when they come. The secret lies in remaining grateful even in the silence, hopeful even in the delay, and faithful even in confusion. The closeness of the response can often be felt in small signs, a moment of unexpected peace, a door that suddenly opens, or even a door that closes just in time to protect you from harm. The universe speaks quietly, but the heart that trusts can hear it. When you calm the noise of impatience and open your eyes to the wisdom in every situation, you start to see that you were never waiting in vain. Every moment of waiting was guided, every tear was noticed, and every word you whispered was recorded. The reason your heart feels restless isn't because your prayer has been denied. It's because your soul is being stretched to grow stronger in faith. The response is already written, already planned, already on its way. But before it reaches you, your heart must be ready to hold it without fear and without pride. Sometimes the gift you're asking for carries a weight you're not yet built to carry. The waiting builds that strength. The silence builds that wisdom. The pain builds that humility. And one day when you least expect it, the response arrives, not with noise or spectacle, but with quiet perfection. It slips into your life so naturally that you might not even realize it's the very thing you once cried for. You'll look back and smile, realizing that what felt like delay was actually perfect timing. You'll see how every disappointment led you to the moment you were meant to reach. So, when it feels like nothing is happening, remember this: the divine response is never far. It's moving toward you as surely as you are being guided toward it. Keep your heart soft, your faith strong, and your tongue filled with gratitude. Because the moment your heart truly trusts, the response will no longer feel distant. It will feel inevitable. The answer is not coming someday, it's already on its way. And all you have to do is keep believing until your heart and the answer meet in the same moment of peace. There is a moment in every seeker's journey when they realize that asking alone is not enough. They begin to see that the secret to answered prayers lies not in multiplying requests, but in surrendering completely. Transformation doesn't happen when you change your words. It happens when you change your heart. You can ask 1,000 times and still feel empty. But when you speak with surrender, even a single whisper carries the power to change your destiny. The essence of transformation through submission lies in understanding that what you release in trust returns to you in abundance. The more you try to control life, the heavier it becomes. But the moment you let go and trust the unseen plan, everything begins to shift, not just around you, but within you. To truly submit is to acknowledge that you are not in charge of outcomes. You can plant seeds, you can water them, but you cannot command the rain. You can plan your days, but you cannot control what tomorrow brings. That realization humbles you and frees you at the same time. You stop struggling against what you cannot change and begin to find peace in what is written. That is where the real transformation begins, when the heart no longer fights the will of the one who created it, but flows with it. Those 3 words of trust are not just an expression of faith, they are a declaration of peace. They are the moment when your soul finally says, I am content with what comes because I trust the one who sends it. Transformation through submission doesn't mean you stop dreaming or desiring. It means you align those desires with a higher wisdom. It means you no longer demand that life goes your way. You simply ask that your way aligns with truth. You begin to understand that sometimes not getting what you want is a hidden blessing, that sometimes pain is the doorway to strength, and sometimes loss is the path to freedom. Every time you surrender, a layer of fear falls away. Every time you trust, your heart expands. And with every act of submission, you grow closer to peace. When you surrender, you stop seeing unanswered prayers as neglect. You start seeing them as protection. You stop viewing hardships as punishment and start recognizing them as preparation. You begin to look at life differently, not through the lens of why me, but through the wisdom of what is this teaching me? This shift in perspective changes everything. It transforms frustration into patience, grief into gratitude, and confusion into clarity. The storms that once terrified you no longer shake you because you understand that even the waves move under command. True submission brings a kind of calm that nothing else can offer. It's not the calm that comes from having no problems, but the calm that comes from knowing you're not facing them alone. You begin to see beauty in the waiting, lessons in the pain, and light even in the dark. You find that you no longer need to have all the answers because you trust that the one who guides you already does. That's when you become unshakable. No matter how uncertain life gets, your heart remains anchored in peace. You stop asking, when will this end? And start saying, whenever it ends, I will still be grateful. Transformation through submission is not weakness. It's the highest form of strength. It takes courage to let go of control, to release expectations, and to surrender your will. But once you do, you discover that the burden you carried was never yours to begin with. You were never meant to carry the world on your shoulders. You were meant to walk lightly, to trust deeply, and to live freely. When you finally hand over what you cannot control, life starts to flow in ways you never imagined. What once felt impossible suddenly becomes effortless because the weight of worry has been replaced with the wings of faith. You see, submission doesn't take away your power. It refines it. It doesn't make you smaller. It makes you whole. It teaches you to move through life with humility, patience, and peace. When you surrender your plans, you make space for divine wisdom to enter. And when that happens, you start noticing how every detail of your life fits perfectly, even the painful ones. You begin to see that what you once called chaos was actually choreography. Every delay, every tear, every turn was leading you somewhere meaningful. So if you are struggling, if your heart feels restless because life isn't unfolding the way you imagined, take a deep breath and whisper those 3 words of trust. Say them not out of habit, but out of belief. Let them rise from your soul, not just your lips. With each repetition, release a little more control, a little more fear, a little more pain. Because transformation doesn't begin when your circumstances change. It begins when your heart does. And once your heart truly submits, everything else follows. You start to walk with serenity instead of stress, with gratitude instead of complaint, with trust instead of anxiety. The storms may still come, but they no longer drown you. They wash you clean. That is the beauty of surrender. It doesn't just change your situation, it changes you. And when you are transformed through submission, you no longer chase answers. You carry peace, knowing that every answer you need will find you in its perfect time.